let's move from domestic to international politics now. I'm joined by Sarah Elliott, who is the spokeswoman for Republicans Overseas UK. Going to have a chat about Donald Trump and all things US election related. Lovely to see you, Sarah. Thanks for coming into the studio. Let's talk about the assassination attempt. I mean, what are we now, a week on from it? Still staggering to watch the footage, frankly. But what impact do you think it's had on the election race so far?
Well, it's definitely rallied the party around him. The RNC convention, which just ended this week, was one of the best conventions in attendees' recollections, saying that it was like 2004. It had this really unified, we're going to go get them, we feel the wind at our backs, we're going to win mentality. Very different than 4 years ago. It also slowed down the conversation on will Biden step down or will Biden not. All this talk about replacing Joe Biden stopped for several days, but now it's ramping back up again, even with rumors that this weekend it would be announced he was stepping down.
Yes.
So
he's meant to have been tapped on the shoulder by Barack Obama, tapped on the shoulder by Nancy Pelosi. I mean, I think it's probably ultimately down to his wife, Jill, to tap him on the shoulder. We've had meetings at Camp David with Biden family members, and yet he's absolutely digging his heels in, which presumably isn't that troubling for Trump. Doesn't Trump just want him to stay in place for as long as possible? Because any replacement is likely to do better in the polls.
This is true. However, the most likely replacement is Vice President Kamala Harris. And she polls about just the same as Joe Biden against Donald Trump, and in some cases worse. So I think Donald Trump is very happy to take on either of those two candidates. If you put someone in like Governor of Pennsylvania, swing state, Josh Shapiro, who's a very popular Democrat, he doesn't have the name recognition.
Yes.
He's not well known to people. If you put someone in like Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of California, well, he's quite left wing. He's, California has a reputation across the United States. So you come into all these different problems, which of course the Democrats have wanted to avoid. And so they've just kept pushing Joe Biden along as the nominee. Now, he hasn't stepped down yet. And they're talking about doing a virtual roll call vote to solidify him but as the nominee before the convention. But we'll see what happens. We could have mini primaries. We could have an open convention. We could have a brokered convention, or we could have a contested convention, all in August for the Democrats.
What's your analysis of Joe Biden and his health? I mean, everybody's got an opinion on it. We just had Aubrey Allegretti in to do the papers, and he, to be fair, was in the Oval Office with Biden and Starmer and said one-on-one he seemed fine. But then, of course, that was predicated by the NATO summit where he confused Zelensky for Putin. So it's tricky. What's your analysis of what's actually going on with him individually and then the advice he's getting?
Well, it's obvious he's not the same man as 4 years ago. There has been obvious decline. And the fact that there has been a Parkinson's doctor that has visited the White House 8 times over the past several years is an indication that something neurologically might be wrong.
Although, of course, the White House spokeswoman said, no, he's in because he's analysing everybody in the White House and don't read too much into it. Then his own physician has said, you know, he's cognitively sound.
I don't know how they can keep saying that based upon the debate performance and other, international displays of confusion.
But do you think there is a number of Democrats? We've heard about the Democrats who have said, look, come on, enough's enough. But are there just a number of Democrats in there just still willing him to continue, presumably in a vain hope that he might still beat Trump, which is odd, because if you look at the polling for all of those key swing states, those 6 different states where basically they decide who the president is going to be, I think Trump is now ahead by anything from 1 to 6 points, if you take, say, Nevada as being where he's most popular.
Yes, I mean, he is getting out of the margin of error in these swing states. Granted, it's 4 months to Election Day. That's a lifetime in U.S. politics, or in politics in general. I mean, just think about what's happened in the last 2 weeks. And if they did replace Biden, I mean, then those numbers go out the window and you have a whole new set of polling you have to go through. But it is one of those situations where I think the Democrats have just wanted to win, and they feel like Joe Biden is the only candidate that can beat Donald Trump. But they know, looking at the June 27th performance, he's not going to last 4 years. And it's not fair to the Democrats in the Democratic primary, and it's not fair to American voters.
Might not be fair to Mr. Biden either, to be fair.
Yes, and that is a key point. Actually, most Americans are feeling that this is elder abuse.
Yeah.
And they need to, out of respect for him as a human being, they need to step
also, his
aside.
legacy before, you know, he started slowing down and making these gaffes was pretty good, and now it's being overshadowed by these more recent years of difficulties. Can we just talk about David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, because he's obviously made some extremely choice remarks about Trump, including describing him as sort of a Nazi white supremacist and saying that he wouldn't have passed his GCSEs and all sorts of other insults. If Trump wins, should David Lammy actually stand down? Because how is he going to have a relationship with the US president?
No, I don't think David Lammy should step down. And he has changed his tune. And he's made great overtures in Washington, D.C. and in the United States and to the Trump campaign.
And to J.D. Vance, the newly sort of chosen one to be vice president.
Yes.
They've got a similar backstory because they're both a bit rags to riches.
Yeah.
But it's a bit rich, isn't it, saying that now? I mean, apart from Sadiq Khan in this country, he's been the most vocal opponent to Trump.
It
and
is.
made really personal barbs. I mean, how would Trump take that, do you think? If he has to be in a room with him come December 2024, what happens?
Well, I mean, if Donald Trump can forgive J.D. Vance for being a never-Trumper and saying these things, then I think he can extend the grace to David Lammy, who is the Foreign Secretary of our best ally. And let's face it, Labour won, hands down, a huge majority. Donald Trump will have to respect the electoral outcome of this country. And he has David Lammy has shown that he wants to be a diplomat.
So maybe he should be diplomatic and apologise. Would that be an idea, Sarah?
I'm sure Donald Trump would welcome that.
Yes.
But everybody should probably just look to the future and move on.
And before I let you go, let's have a little chat about who might be the ambassador to the US, because I think the Tories had their pick. Starmer came in and said, I'm sorry, you'll have to do something else because we want to choose our own person. A couple of names being thrown about. Peter Mandelson, former close advisor and minister under Blair, and indeed David Miliband, again, somebody closely associated with Labour politics in this country. Any view on that? I mean, is it important who we appoint? Not least if we have to bridge a gap between Republican thinking and Labour thinking.
Exactly. No, it's very important, actually. And David Miliband spent a lot of time in the United States. He might be a good choice. I just feel like these choices quite harken back to 20 years ago.
Yes.
Could we get some fresh Labour thinking and blood in the mix? You know, people who maybe have more of a less of a globalist worldview. The Republicans right now are actually very much Labour focused in the sense they had the president of the Teamsters Union speak at the Republican National Convention. Maybe less progressive people and more people who are focused, more traditional Labour representative would work better with these Republicans.
Maybe Nigel Farage of this para.
Well, there you go.
Could be a conduit, do you think? Just very, very quickly, Sarah, we're running out of time.
I think he would be very useful, yes.
All right.